Emma, I saw something yesterday that genuinely broke my brain. And the more I think about it, the more I realize it's the perfect microcosm for everything we talk about here at the Academy.
You've got that look on your face again, Ryan. The I've discovered a glitch in the matrix look. Tell me everything. What happened?
I was at that little corner coffee shop, the one with the overpriced lattes and the jazz that's just a little too loud. I'm sitting there, and there's a guy in front of me in line. He's got this massive English grammar workbook on the table. I mean, this thing was a beast. It was totally covered in color-coded sticky notes, marginalia everywhere, highlighters in 4 different colors.
A serious student. That sounds like someone who's putting in the hours.
Serious doesn't even cover it. He was deep into advanced causative passive exercises. He was diagramming sentences like he was performing open-heart surgery. I'm looking at this and thinking, wow, this guy probably knows the structure of my own language better than I do.
And then the real world intervened, didn't it?
Exactly. The line moves up. He gets to the counter. The barista, who's moving at 100 miles an hour, looks at him and asks a very simple, very standard question. Do you want room for cream?
Oh no, I can see where this is going.
Emma, it was a total system failure. The guy just froze. His eyes went wide. He stared at her like she just asked him to solve a quantum physics equation in ancient Greek. The workbook was right there. He could probably explain the subjunctive mood for an hour, but he couldn't handle room for cream.
It's the classic disconnect, Ryan. It's what happens when you treat a living, breathing skill like a museum piece to be studied under a magnifying glass.
But it felt so wrong to watch. This guy is clearly dedicated. He's got the discipline. But in the one moment where the language actually mattered, the moment of connection and commerce, he was functionally mute.
It's the grammar trap. It's a systemic issue where the more you focus on the internal mechanics, the less you can actually perform the movement.
It's so counterintuitive. In almost every other field, if you study the mechanics more, you get better. If I study the mechanics of a swing, I should hit the ball better.
Only up to a point. If you're thinking about the exact angle of your elbow and the rotation of your wrist while the 90-mile-an-hour fastball is flying towards your head, you're gonna strike out every single time.
That's a great point. You're overanalyzing the process while the event is happening.
Precisely. In that coffee shop, his brain was trying to run a search through a 10,000-page index of rules to find a match for what he just heard, while the barista was already moving on to the next customer.
I bet a huge portion of our audience is feeling a pang of recognition right now. They've been that guy. They've had the book, they've done the work, and they still feel like they're failing.
And I want to tell them right now, you aren't a failure. You've just been trained to use the wrong part of your brain for the job.
It's like trying to run a high-end video game on a calculator. The hardware just isn't built for it.
We've built a generation of grammar experts who are language novices, and today we're going to help everyone in that trap find the exit.
I'm ready for the jailbreak. Let's dismantle the trap. Okay, Emma, let's get into the weeds here. If grammar isn't just the rules we learn in school, then what are we even talking about? How can knowing the rules be a bad thing?
We have to understand the fundamental neurological difference between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. It's the difference between knowing that and knowing how.
That sounds like a philosophy lecture. Give it to me in plain English.
Think about driving a car. When you're merging onto a busy highway, are you consciously thinking about the gear ratio or the exact Newton meters of torque your engine is producing?
God, no. If I did that, I'd end up in the median. I feel the car. I see the gap and I move.
Exactly. That's procedural knowledge. It lives in your muscle memory. It's a reflex. Now imagine if I told you that before you were allowed to drive, you had to memorize a 500-page manual on the physics of internal combustion.
I'd be terrified to turn the key. I'd be so worried about the pistons that I wouldn't see the stop sign.
That is exactly what happens in the grammar trap. Language is supposed to live in the doing part of your brain, the same place that handles walking, swimming, or playing an instrument.
But schools put it in the encyclopedia part of the brain.
Yes, and the path between the encyclopedia and the mouth is a very long, very narrow, very congested road.
So when I ask someone a question, they have to run to the back of the library, find the right book, flip to the right page, check the rule, and then try to speak.
And by the time they've found the past participle chapter, the conversation has moved on to a completely different topic.
That sounds exhausting. It makes me tired just thinking about the mental effort required to just say, I went to the store.
It is exhausting. This is why people get language burnout. They aren't just communicating, they are performing high-speed mental data entry while trying to be social.
But Emma, isn't grammar the architecture? Don't you need the blueprint before you build the house?
I'd argue that grammar is the result of the language, not the cause. Humans were speaking with incredibly complex, beautiful grammar for tens of thousands of years before anyone sat down to write a rulebook.
So Shakespeare didn't have a grammar for dummies on his desk.
He had an ear for the patterns. He had a feel for the rhythm. He wasn't following a manual. He was riding a wave of acquired patterns.
So when we treat grammar like the Ten Commandments, we're actually working against how the human brain is evolved to handle communication.
Precisely. We've turned a natural, pattern-matching superpower into a rigid academic chore.
It's like trying to learn how to dance by reading a book about anatomy. You might know where the femur is, but you're still going to trip over your own feet.
And the more you focus on the femur, the less you hear the music.
That is the ultimate tragedy of the grammar-obsessed student. They are so focused on the bones that they completely miss the dance.
We need to get people to stop looking at the manual and start feeling the engine.
But how do you teach someone to feel a language? That sounds a bit woo-woo, doesn't it?
You don't teach it, you acquire it. And there's a very specific, very scientific way to make that happen.
Acquire. That's the magic word. Let's dig into that, because I think it changes everything. Okay, I have to play devil's advocate for a second. We're basically trashing the way every single person in this audience learned English in school.
I know, and I'm ready for that fight, Ryan.
But look, schools had to teach something measurable, right? You can't just have 30 teenagers in a room feeling the language and expect to give them a grade at the end of the semester.
And that right there is the original sin of modern education. We optimized the system for the grade, not for the human being.
But grammar is concrete. You can mark a checkbox. You can see if a student knows the difference between there, and there. It's clean.
It's a clean way to manage a factory, Ryan. It's a terrible way to grow a speaker. We take these incredible, natural language learning machines, human brains, and we force them to do translation and conjugation drills.
The pen of my aunt is on the table. I think I said that about 500 times in middle school.
Exactly. No one cares about your aunt's pen. It's a sentence that has zero utility in the real world, but it's easy to grade.
I remember my teacher would walk around with this sharp red pen, just waiting for a mistake to happen. It felt like I was being hunted.
That's correction culture. It's a form of linguistic trauma. Every time that red pen comes out, your brain associates speaking with danger.
So your fight or flight response kicks in, and the first thing that shuts down is your creative, fluid speech.
Precisely. You stop taking risks. You only say what you are 100% sure is perfect, which for most learners means you end up saying almost nothing at all.
The school system essentially rewards accuracy and punishes bravery.
But language is an act of bravery. To learn to speak, you have to be willing to sound like a complete idiot for a while.
Schools don't have a rubric for sounding like a brave idiot. If they did, I would have been a straight-A student in Spanish.
But because they don't, students focus on the only thing that gets them the A, the explicit rules. They become grammar experts who are functionally mute the moment they step off the plane in London.
It's almost a scam. You pay for years of tuition, you do all the homework, you get the high grades, and then you realize you can't even hold a 5-minute conversation at a pub.
It's a structural failure. And the worst part is, the students blame themselves. They think, I must not have the language gene.
There is no language gene. We all learned our first language perfectly, without a single conjugation chart.
Because we learned it through context, through need, and through massive amounts of playful trial and error.
But you can't put playful trial and error on a standardized test.
No, you can't. And that's why the system is rigged against true fluency. It's built for measurability, not for communication.
So, for everyone watching, if you feel stuck, it's probably because you were a good student. You followed the rules so well that you accidentally broke your ability to speak.
It's a bitter pill to swallow, but once you realize the game was rigged, you can stop playing it. You can stop trying to get the A and start trying to get the connection.
Forget the A, get the coffee. That needs to be the new mantra.
I love that. Let's make it official.
Let's get into the actual why here. What is happening inside the brain during that freeze moment? Because it feels like your mind is just blanking.
It's a resource management problem. Your brain has a very limited amount of working memory. Think of it as the RAM on your laptop.
Okay, so if I'm trying to run a high-def video and 30 browser tabs at the same time, the computer starts to chug.
Exactly. And conscious grammar rules are heavy programs. They are absolute memory hogs.
So when I'm trying to speak, I'm already using RAM for listening, pronunciation, and social cues.
Right. Now, imagine you try to launch the Advanced Grammar Checker program on top of all that.
The past perfect continuous tab just crashed the whole system.
Precisely. Your brain says, I can't do both. I can't process the meaning of what she said and calculate the correct verb ending at the same time. So it just stops.
That explains why I can write a perfect, beautiful email in a foreign language, but can't say those same words out loud.
Because with an email, you have time. You can clear the RAM. You can look at the truck of the grammar rule and move it slowly.
But in a conversation, the cars are moving at highway speeds.
If you stop to check your blind spot for 3 minutes, you're going to cause a massive pileup.
This is fascinating. So the freeze isn't a lack of knowledge, it's actually an overflow of it.
It's too much of the wrong kind of knowledge. You're using your prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, for a task that should be handled by the basal ganglia, the doing brain.
The thinking brain is too slow for the street.
It's a turtle trying to race a cheetah.
So when a native speaker says, "How's it going?" they aren't processing 4 separate words.
No, to them, it's one single unit of sound, one chunk. Their brain processes it as one bit of data.
But the learner is processing how plus is plus it plus going. They are working 4 times harder than the native speaker.
At least 4 times. And if the sentence is more complex, the gap becomes enormous. They're trying to build the plane while it's in the air, using a manual written in a language they barely know.
No wonder people are exhausted after a 10-minute chat. It's like running a marathon in your head.
The goal of fluency is to offload those rules from the thinking brain to the doing brain. We want to move the grammar from the encyclopedia to the muscle memory.
But you can't just move a file in the brain, can you?
No, you have to rebuild the file in the new location through a completely different process called implicit learning.
It's like the safety net became a cage. People hold on to the rules because they feel safe, but those rules are the very thing keeping them from flying.
You have to be willing to fall to learn how to soar. You have to trust the doing brain, even when it feels messy.
I think we need to give people permission to be messy. Let's talk about the lazy genius of native speakers. Okay, Emma, let's be honest for a second. This is the part that usually makes learners a little bit frustrated, and I don't blame them one bit.
You're talking about the fact that we, as native speakers, are technically grammatically illiterate about our own language?
Exactly. If you asked me right now to explain the difference between a gerund and a present participle, I would just stare at you until you left the room.
Most of us would. We use the language perfectly, but we have no idea how the engine actually works. We're just drivers.
It's like asking a bird to explain the physics of aerodynamics. It's just flying. It doesn't need a formula to stay in the air.
And yet, we expect learners to master the formula before they're allowed to even flap their wings. It's completely backwards.
I've seen students get genuinely angry when they see a native speaker break a rule that they spent 3 weeks studying.
Like who versus whom.
Oh man, nobody says whom unless they're in a period drama or writing a legal brief.
But it's still in the textbooks. So the student uses it, they sound like a Victorian butler, and they get confused when the person at the bar just says, "Who are you looking for?"
We use grammar by feel. It's an internal ping in the brain. If I say, "I has a dog," my brain doesn't look at a chart. It just makes a wrong sound.
It's an itch, like wearing a shirt that's on backwards. You don't need a manual to tell you it feels wrong, you just feel it.
That itch is what learners are actually looking for, but they're trying to find it in books. You can't learn an itch from a book.
You only get it from massive, high-quality input. You have to hear the patterns so many times that anything else sounds like static.
This is how we did it as kids. My parents didn't give me a grammar lecture before breakfast.
Now, Ryan, before you get your Cheerios, let's discuss the third-person singular.
I would have just thrown the Cheerios at them.
Precisely. You just listened. For 2 years, you were a language sponge. You were absorbing patterns long before you ever produced a word.
And when I finally said something wrong, they didn't give me a failing grade. They just modeled it back correctly.
That is implicit learning. It's the brain's natural superpower. It's a pattern-matching machine that works 24/7 without you even trying.
But the grammar trap tries to replace that supercomputer with a handheld calculator.
And a calculator is slow, rigid, and prone to syntax errors.
We also skip half the rules when we're in a hurry. Gotta go instead of I have to got to go.
If a student says, "I have got to go," they sound like a very polite, very stiff robot. They aren't fitting into the rhythm of the room.
The street rules are all about efficiency and flow. If a rule gets in the way of the rhythm, we toss it out the window.
But learners are terrified of the language police. I promise you guys, the police aren't coming for you if you say, "Me and him went."
In fact, you'll probably sound more like a real human being.
We need to teach people to look for chunks, the macros of the language.
I love that. A chunk is a pre-packaged piece of grammar. You don't assemble it, you just launch it.
Exactly. I was wondering if, by the way, if I were you, these are single units of meaning.
Native speakers aren't smarter. We just have a bigger library of shortcuts.
And the grammar trap tells you that shortcuts are cheating, but in language, shortcuts are the only way to survive.
Okay, Emma, I have to push back here because I can hear the counter-argument already. If I just let myself make mistakes, aren't I just going to become the person who speaks bad English forever?
You're talking about fossilization. It's the #1 fear for intermediate learners.
Right. If I say it wrong today, I'm building a bad habit that will stay with me for 40 years.
It's a myth, Ryan. Or at least it's a massive misunderstanding of how habits actually work.
But surely, if I don't correct myself mid-sentence, I'm reinforcing the error.
No. When you correct yourself mid-sentence, you are reinforcing a much more dangerous habit, the habit of stopping.
Ouch. That hits home.
You are telling your brain that accuracy is more important than communication, and your brain, being a loyal servant, says, "Okay, message received. I will shut down the flow every time I'm not 100% sure."
So I become the person who is technically correct, but incredibly painful to talk to.
Exactly. Most people would much rather talk to someone who makes 10 grammar mistakes but keeps the energy and the connection alive.
Than the person who takes a 30-second pause to find the right preposition.
The first person is a conversation partner. The second person is a project. And most people don't want a project when they're just trying to grab a beer.
That's a brutal truth. But how do we improve if we don't correct?
We have to separate fluency practice from accuracy practice. They are two different gyms.
Okay, walk me through that.
When you are in fluency mode, the internal critic is banned. Put him in a soundproof room and lock the door. Your only goal is to keep the air moving.
Even if I say I goed to the store?
Especially then. If the person understood you, you won that round. Keep going.
But then when do I fix the I goed?
That's accuracy mode. That's your study time. Record yourself, listen back later, and then find the mistakes.
It's like a pro athlete watching the game film. They don't stop mid-play to check their footwork.
Exactly. They'd get tackled. They play the game with 100% focus, and they analyze the mistakes in the locker room afterward.
But most learners are trying to be the player and the coach at the exact same time.
It's a recipe for a mental breakdown. We need to give ourselves permission to be functional before we try to be perfect.
Perfect is the enemy of fluent. I've seen people at a B1 level for a decade because they are too scared to make B2 mistakes.
They're holding on to the handrail of the grammar book because they're afraid to swim. But the cool fish are out in the deep water.
You have to let go of the handrail to reach them, and you have to be okay with swallowing a little bit of water along the way.
I'm ready to jump in. Give us the roadmap. How do we actually escape this trap?
All right, Emma, we've diagnosed the problem, we've trashed the school system, and we've slayed the perfection monster. People are listening right now because they want the how. Give us the escape plan.
The plan has 4 main pillars. It's simple, but it requires a total shift in how you spend your time.
Pillar number 1, hit me.
Massive comprehensible input. Stop reading grammar textbooks and start consuming things you actually enjoy and actually understand.
So if I love The Office or Interstellar, I should be watching those instead of doing worksheets.
Yes, your doing brain needs a library of patterns. You are feeding the supercomputer. If you don't give it data, it has nothing to match.
Okay, pillar 2.
The chunk mindset. Stop learning individual words. A single word is like a single Lego brick. It's hard to build anything with it.
But a chunk is like a whole wall.
Exactly. Learn, I was wondering if, it's been a while, I'm not sure about. Treat them like single words. No assembly required.
This takes so much pressure off the RAM. You aren't processing 5 words, you're processing 1 unit.
It's the secret weapon of every fluent speaker on the planet.
Pillar 3. This one sounds like the hardest.
The no correction zone. You need at least 20 minutes a day where you are legally allowed to speak terrible English.
Where does this happen? In the car? To my cat?
Anywhere. Talk to yourself, join a conversation club, or find a language partner who agrees to the rule. In this zone, if you make a mistake, you are not allowed to stop. You have to find a way around it.
This builds the recovery muscle.
Which is 1,000 times more important than the grammar muscle. If you can recover from a mistake, you lose your fear of making them.
You become invincible because you know you can always find a different path to the meaning.
It's like being a jazz musician. A wrong note is just an opportunity to start a new melody.
I love that. And pillar 4.
Delayed review. This is where the grammar books finally come back out, but only as a refinement tool, not a foundation.
Just-in-time learning instead of just-in-case learning.
Exactly. If you struggled to explain your childhood yesterday, go and look up the used to rule today. Now that rule has a hook in your brain. It solves a real-world problem you actually had.
It's not a fact to be memorized, it's a tool to be used. This changes the whole relationship. The book isn't a master, it's a servant.
And you only call the servant when you have a specific job for him to do.
Most people spend all day serving the book. We're telling them to flip the script.
We're giving them back their chime and their voice.
It feels doable. It feels like the weight of perfection is finally being lifted off their shoulders.
We're giving them a life vest and telling them to start kicking. The shore is closer than you think.